Hi again, everybody. This is Jerry Serino of From the Median Podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I also appreciate you subscribing on any podcast app, watching us on Rumble, and social media as well, Facebook, Instagram, all those. Just search Cleveland Right to Life. I am very excited to have Sara Huff on as a guest today. And this is another testament to all of you as listeners, and all your support allows us to get great guests. Sara is a former feminist turned pro-life advocate, and I love stories like yours, Sara, because you went from one side to the other. You know it, you understand it, and now you're passionate about the side of uh, conservatism, Christianity, and life. So, Sara Huff, thank you for joining me.
No, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much for an invitation.
Yes, absolutely. So, just as I'll let you give your full background, but you were once a leading feminist in Brazil, which you could, that's where your accent is from. If anyone
Yes.
noticed that, um, and you changed because of an experience. So I want to certainly want to ask you about that experience and give that testimony. Obviously, we won't be able to get into everything on a relatively short show like this. People can follow you and connect with you, but what does it mean to be a feminist, specifically in Brazil?
I guess being a feminist is the same everywhere. And I will define feminism as a social and political movement that aims specifically destroy the female nature. That's what feminism is. There is this misunderstanding that is supposed to be a fair struggle for women's rights and women's equality. But if we measure um, the thing by its fruits, we will see exactly what feminists brought to the world: infertility, abortion, divorce, um, women that are completely unhappy, and many other
Hmm.
really bad things. So, a feminist in itself, I will say, is someone who practices this ideology, but most of them, they're not aware of all these issues. They
Yeah.
just go like me, they go on Google, on Wikipedia, they will type what feminism is, and they will find a bunch of great artists, Hollywood celebrities, and they will identify, well, I want to be like that. What is
Hmm.
feminism? It's this huge, beautiful propaganda that is about my body, my rules, independence, girl boss, girl power. The future is female, and young women, girls, they are attracted by it.
Hmm.
So you can be a feminist, listen to Taylor Swift. You can be a feminist on the Congress, um, as AOC. So there
Yeah.
are a lot of, I will not say that there's a lot of different types of feminism because I don't believe that, but there's a lot of ways that you can exert this ideology upon someone.
Yeah, it's always the left always sort of hijacks words or terms. They're so famous for it, right? Rights, women's health care. Well, we all want women's health care. We all want women to have rights. Of course, who says they don't, right? And so the whole thing with feminism, yeah, there was a time in this country in which women didn't have the same rights as men, and that was corrected. Thankfully, we're glad and happy for that. But then they take over, and once they do, the left is like a cancer, right? They poison everything. So okay, so you were a feminist. Tell me about that. Like, did you just grow up that way? Did you hit become a feminist or a leftist at some point, or how did that progress?
No, I actually came from a very dysfunctional family, Jerry. I grew up with one of my brothers completely in the middle of narcos and cartels, very violent towards me, towards my parents. Unfortunately, we suffered a lot of physical abuse under my brother. We grew up. My dad is a Protestant, my mom is a Catholic, so we grew up Christians. But unfortunately, I had my upbringing very damaged by this brother in a way. When I turned 16, he unfortunately kicked me out of my house. My parents couldn't do anything. They were also victims of the violence of my brother. I ended up living with some relatives, living with some friends. I ended up on the streets. Then I ended up in prostitution. I was severely exploited at the age of 16, 17, because I needed to eat, I need to go to school, and that's where I end up. So at the age of almost 18, I was being exploited, I was being sexually assaulted, and I was no family, I was nobody. So at that point of my life, I was hating the family institution, the nuclear family. I was hating men, and I was hating God. So I was the perfect victim to be kidnapped by an ideology. So I was just watching the news, and I saw this group of feminists in Europe, in East Europe, just protesting against sexual exploitation and rape culture and rights of women, against violence against women. And I look at them and, oh my gosh, they're so powerful. They're so, I got obsessed with seeing women fighting back their oppressions. And I was in an oppressed situation. So I thought, maybe if I join this movement, I don't even know what that is, but they're so awesome. Maybe if I join them, I can get away with the situation. I can heal this wound in my heart. Mm-hmm. So I emailed them. We went back and forth, and they invited me to go to Ukraine, and I was funded to go to Ukraine in the year of 2012. And when I got there, there was at least 40 other women from different nations. We're talking about the US, we're talking about the UK, we're talking about France, Germany, Western countries we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And we went through a severe brainwash, feminist, revolutionary, liberal boot camp, where we were taught how to be professional activists, how to organize protests, how to engage with leftist political parties, how to do lobby, but how to even press, how to talk to the press, how to engage with the press. And when it was 6 weeks, and we were truly convinced that we were heroes now, we all had a leadership spirit, and we were very different. We were young, on our early 20s. I will say I was 19. And I will say that there was rich girls, poor girls, every kind of girls, but there was something in common between us. We all came from very disturbed upbringing. We all came from a very dysfunctional family. So perfect victims, so we were trained, and we were sent back to our countries. I was sent back to Brazil, and they prepared my entire career. When I get back to Brazil, I became the most relevant and most famous feminist in my country. I was a big liberal figure in my country, and I was being funded, and I was believing that whatever I was doing, going to college campuses, we're talking about almost 15 years ago. So it's important that people understand that it's not something from now, you know?
It's not brand new.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I was going to college campuses, as I was on TV every single week, the most famous TV shows and all that. And they will tell me, you need to talk bad about Christianity. You need to talk bad about pro-life movement. You need to convince people of this and that. But I know I have a lot of accountability with all this, but I truly somehow, even though it sounds very crazy, I really believed that with my actions, I will be helping vulnerable women. That was my dream, that any woman in my country will go through whatever I was going through. And that's why I kind of feel sorry for liberals in general, because I understand that most of them, young people, they have absolutely no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
They are like puppets. They are being used as political and ideological puppets.
Yes, and I see that on college campuses. I see people, they are diehard believers in these liberal beliefs. But if you question them, if you ask them to explain themselves, if you engage with them, they are completely lost. They don't have any evidence, and it tells you they're brainwashed. When you say, so who was the group that recruited you? Was it an organization? Was it funded by a certain people or a certain group?
That organization is specific. It's called Femin. They still exist till nowadays. They're based in France now, and they are very famous around the world because they do protests and topless. So they are always with their breasts out, and they usually break into spaces, and they're not exactly aggressive like terrorists, but they're very famous because they use their breasts as a way to call attention. Um, and I don't know. I can't tell you who funded them,
Yeah.
but what I know for sure, and this is like everyone that is listening to us and watching us now can go right now and do just a research on many liberal foundations like the Rockefeller Foundation, the Open Society Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They have thousands of grants for many leftist movements, and we are talking about millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the data that you know publicly. Imagine what it's behind the scenes. So everybody can go now to any of one of this. It's like a public record. You can go there and see who are they funded, and you're going to be surprised. There are many liberal leftist movements in America and around the West. They are being funded by this globalist foundations.
Yeah, no, that I think we all came to understand and see in the last handful of years, especially. So obviously, you became brainwashed, and you went out there and championed for the feminist side, the left side, and at some point, you changed. You converted to Catholicism. You changed your perspective on life and on politics in general, away from leftism. And by the way, if you go to sarahuff.com, and Sarah is Sara Huff, Huff. I'll have this all on fromthemedian.org, so you could have it there if you're driving and can't get it. But sarahuff.com is a really great website, by the way, and it has all sorts of really great information and some of the talks that you've given, and you do a lot. So if you're looking for a good speaker, Sarah is there as your girl. But so take us into the transition from being this left wing, hate men, hate God, Christianity, pro abortion, and taking such a turn.
Well, to be very honest, Jerry, after just 1 or 2 years that I was involved with the feminist movement and all this liberal activism, professional activism, I was feeling completely empty. I thought those wounds that I had in my heart, somehow they will heal, and they never healed. I mean, but I didn't know what to do. You know, when you were so involved with something and they became your family, they became your friends, and you just don't have any future perspective of your life. So I would like to challenge conservative Christian people, because sometimes I love that we save babies. I do love it. This is like sacred, precious. It's a miracle every time that we, as a pro-life movement, we save a baby. But sometimes there are people that are grown up and they need to be saved as well. And I keep thinking that I wanted to leave that movement for so many times, but I didn't know how, because I didn't know. I never went to college. I didn't have any family. And sometimes I just keep thinking, maybe someone went there and said, do you want a way out? And I was like, absolutely. But that never happened. I guess Abby Johnson has something now similar. a pro-love ministry that she helps abortion industry workers to leave, and I think that's just amazing.
Yep.
But anyways, I was just involved. I was too much involved with that, and when I turned 22 years old, I got pregnant, and I didn't know what to do. I surely didn't want a child at that moment, so I talked to my feminist friends and with my feminist leaderships, and they said, well, that's actually a great idea, because in Brazil, Jerry, abortion is not legal. And now we have, like my feminist friends speaking, we have the biggest and most famous feminist character in this country. She's pregnant. So you have to have an abortion, because then we can use this fact to push the abortion agenda as a priority in the Supreme Court. So that's what we need to do. And I said, well, I guess. I was very confused. And I said, and by the way, whatever is inside your belly, this is not a baby. That's Sarah, this is not even a baby. Don't worry. This is not a human. This is not a child. You know, all the dehumanization techniques that they do to brainwash women, to convince them to get rid of their own child. They this is just a blob of cells. This is nothing. Yep. This is just like period blood clot. And I said, well, okay. And they helped me, Jerry, to have a chemical abortion. And they said it was safe. They said it was, I don't know, Jerry, how much Americans are aware of that. But we, immigrants, we from underdeveloped countries, we look up to America so much. Like, America is so special. Everything that's from America, for someone who lives in Brazil and Mexico and Nicaragua, it doesn't matter. Wow, this is from America. It's so important. If I go there, if I go back to Brazil now and just bring like an American brand lipstick, my friends will be, wow, it's so awesome. Yeah. So something that really encouraged me to have a chemical abortion, it was because the abortionist that was providing that, she will come every 6 months to America to take courses with Planned Parenthood and, you know, this updates and, you know, the summits and all that. And she told me, this is normal. All American women do this. Like, this is something that people have in America for the last 50 years. Yeah. So I go, well, if American women, they have a high criteria, America is so special. And if American women are doing it and it's safe and it's legal and they keep doing it, so I think everything's going to be fine. So that was something that really encouraged me. And I think it's important to me to say that, because America, I love this country. I've been living here for 2 years and I love America. I love America so much, especially Texas. But I think American people they need to understand how special they are for the rest of the world, that everything that happens in this country will impact other places. And I'm not saying in any way that it's American people's fault that I had an abortion. I'm saying that bad people will use the big and great reputation that America have to try to convince other people to do bad stuff.
Right.
So I had that abortion. It was awful. They told me many times to not look, that they said that I will have just minor period cramps. They told me many times to not look in the toilet, But I didn't have minor cramps. It was just horrible. It was an excruciating pain. It was something that I don't wish that for my worst enemy. Nobody told me that I will go, that I will deliver a baby. No one said that I will actually go to a delivery. No one told me that I will have contractions, that it will be on labor. No one told me that. No one explained, like, up front, that that's what an abortion is. If the baby it's in, there's a way that it needs to come out. I think sometimes, especially when I talk to young people and they are in favor of abortion, I think they think abortion is the procedure. It's a magic procedure that you just have like a witch stick or a fairy stick that you just do, and the baby is gone. They don't think about like real procedure, how the baby is gonna come out, how the women's body will have to move and change in an unnatural way to expel that baby out. That's called delivery. Like, we are not delivering a person that it's alive.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? So
Yeah.
it was just very traumatic, and I kept bleeding. I kept bleeding. They told me to not look in the toilet. I did look in the toilet, and I never saw a blob of cells or a blood clot. I saw my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That was horrible. It was just, and I kept bleeding for over 10 days. And one day I woke up in the middle of the night, like with a huge bleeding. The tip of my fingers were turning blue. My lips were blue. I was sweating. I was vomiting in a terrible pain. Like my interior of my body was on fire. Even the smell that was coming out of my body was something horrible. I called all my feminist friends, 7 and 9, asking for help. And I said, don't worry, we're going to be there. They never showed up. They never came. The only person who actually heard me screaming for help was my neighbor. And he literally had to break my apartment's door down and rescue me. He took me to the hospital and he saved my life. And I used to hate that neighbor, Jerry. You know why? Because he was a white Christian male.
Mm.
That's all the reasons why
Yeah.
I used to hate that man. But it was that man, his wife, and his family who saved my life, because I had sepsis. I got sepsis.
Mm-hmm.
Who saved my life and took care of me for 6 months until I got well. One of the immediate consequences of my abortion, it was that the doctor said I couldn't have babies anymore. I lost one of my fallopian tubes. It was very damaged. But God is so amazing that he gave me a second chance. And my second chance, now his name is Hector. He's 10 years old. And he's my little miracle. And then when I got pregnant, I understood, wow, maybe God doesn't hate me. Maybe God loves me because he didn't let me die. And he already gave me a second opportunity. So I pushed all this feminism away. I started to rethinking my whole life. And of course, I wasn't being funded anymore by the feminist movement. So I was facing a terrible financial crisis. And who helped me, Jerry? Pregnancy resource centers.
Right.
The same pregnancy resource centers that I used to fight against, that I used to cuss them and hate them. They gave me everything I needed. From diapers to send me to college and paying my tuition. They changed my life. And now that's what I do. I like to give back because they literally saved me in many ways.
Wow. That's an amazing story, and I really appreciate you sharing that, since it's obviously very intimate. You're sharing intimate experiences and intimate things, and that cannot be easy. But it's obvious that you're doing that in order to say, to, almost taking young people by the shoulders and shaking them and say, don't go down this road, right? Because you were there, and that's what makes your story and your testimony so powerful. Um, Sadly, we are running out of time, and I could keep talking to you for hours and hours, actually. And I would encourage everybody to go to sarahuff.com. That's SARA Huff, HUFF. Again, this will all be on From the Median website, and you can get it all there. You could also go to Sara Huff Official on Instagram and follow her there, which is where I found her as well. So I'd highly suggest you do all that. And if you're looking for a great speaker at an event, Sara is definitely one to have. Sara, thank you so much for all that you're doing, for sharing your story, and also for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much for all of you do with the pregnancy center too. And God bless you.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank all of you for listening to this episode of From the Median podcast. We will see you next time.